Hello, everybody. Welcome along to your afternoon rabble here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast, part of the Rabble Network and the Talk Sport Fan Network as well. I hope everybody's doing well, apart from one or two people, and you know who you are. You absolutely know who you are, Lyndon. Anyway, Charles. Anyway, I'm joined today by Wally Irvin. Wally, how are you?
Not gonna lie, I'm sweating a wee bit after throwing that washing out in the line quickly before I had to jump on the podcast. So, and it is quite humid today, so I getting my sweat on.
Anyway, Charles. Can we? Oh, I'm hearing an echo. There we go. That's it. It's gone. I was hearing myself back here. It's not good when I hear my own voice. Can we let everybody know that you're the reason that we're late?
Yes, I genuinely went outside at 20 past thinking this washing won't take long to hang up on the air. And 10 minutes later, we're still doing it. So it was like running in the house to try and set up the podcast with you. So, yeah, it's totally my fault.
Right. Listen, inside, right, you've got, you got a whirly gig outside, right? What do you call, and I don't want to say the name of it, right, because I don't want to kind of bias your answer. But what do you call the clothes dryer indoory thing?
Just call it a clothes area. But like growing up, my mum and my dad used to call it a whirly gig.
Well, a clothes horse, yeah.
Aye, I mean it's basically the same thing. I think more and more people call it a clothes area now, but aye, look, it could be well, this much, but anybody can call it anything they want. And we've got one up the stairs.
You know what my missus calls it,
right?
A winter dike.
Yes, I have heard that. Yeah, I have heard that before. But like it depends what era you were growing up in, I suppose, doesn't it? You know?
No, it's not a winter dike, it's a clothes horse. Everybody knows it as a clothes horse.
No, but I have heard people say that before, though.
Nah, see, because she's from Lanarkshire, you know.
She's a strange one.
Let her go on a free transfer, Martin.
There you go.
He wouldn't say that to Lisa's face, but Wally.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't, to be honest. I mean, I've still not got my money back for the night I gave you money to go and get your daughter a pie, I think it was, and you kept the change. I was too scared to ask your wife for the money back.
That's just not true. That is absolutely not true. You're never feared to ask for your money back, Wally. Right, okay, let's get into some Rangers chat. Please do get your comments in, folks. Wally, just in terms of like, I was expecting, see, once Rangers came back and we got that pre-season friendly, right?
Right.
I was expecting 1,000,001 talking points. I was expecting the news to be non-stop. See, to be fair though, it's been relatively quiet. I know there's one or two links that we're going to discuss, right? But all in all, since that Bruges game, Molly, everything's been relatively quiet, hasn't it?
See, to be honest, that's the way it should be at a football club. I think before there was so many leaks coming out of the club that it was almost like an hourly thing that there was something new. Whereas obviously with the new ownership, with the new people that's come into the building, it's clear that privacy is a big thing and that they're trying to keep as much in-house as possible. And I think they've just gone so long with like kind of news kind of filtering out from every part of the club that it's a surprise now that sometimes we go a couple of days without hearing anything. But I mean, that's how it was when I grew up. You know, like it wasn't like you heard something every single day. And see, I'm old enough to remember that, you know, like the breaking news, or like the news at 5 o'clock was like Rangers had signed somebody, and that was the first time you knew about it because like you weren't on the internet, you weren't looking at stuff like that all day. I think the weirdest one was probably the day we signed. I think it might have been Ronald De Boer or Frank De Boer. I can't remember, but I was working in an office in Johnston, and the like sort of delivery guy was like bringing the mail in. He's like, "Big man, I think Rangers have just signed whatever it was, Ronald or Frank De Boer," and I'm like, "What?" I was like, "I don't think so, mate." And then like, I went home that night, and then obviously you're sitting and you start watching the news, and all of a sudden he's there. So like before the days of like the full social media madness, you did actually have to wait until either the news or if you maybe listened to the radio or something. That was how a lot of this stuff broke.
Do you think social media and that's kind of killed the transfer market for fans in a way? Because like we're going to discuss Abu Kamara at Hull. There's another link. We'll probably go back over the Connor Cody stuff. I've got another couple of things that lined up that I want to talk about. But just in terms of social media now, it's almost as if we just expect news all the time.
Yeah, I think that's, well, like you look at somebody like sort of Fabrizio Romano, like who knew who he was before, like social media? You know, and this guy's now like the biggest, you know, guy for breaking news. And you get, what is it, Ornstein that works for The Athletic. I mean, I probably couldn't have told you 2 or 3 names of journalists growing up. Now, when you look at social media, a lot of these journalists have got hundreds of thousands of followers on social media because they're waiting for the breaking news. You look at Romano, what's he got? Like 25 million people following him, something like that, ridiculous. So yeah, like it's very much big news now, and obviously, you know, the way that you know the football business side of things is going. You've got all these agents that are involved and stuff, and then you've got people leaking news out to people, and then especially like a lot of these ones where there's like the sort of minimum release clause. It's always funny that the club that's going to buy the player knows exactly what the clause is, because the reality is it should really only be the club that he's at that knows that, and the agent most of the time.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, this news always seems to somehow break out that there's a release clause or there's a minimum clause, or you know, and it is wrong, but it's just modern day football, and it's something you have to accept along with, you know, players having agreed contracts with clubs before they've actually agreed a fee with the club. That just seems to be the norm now.
I've very, very rarely mentioned anybody really from the BBC on this show. I'm not a massive fan of the BBC, Willie, as I don't think is a surprise to you. But this comment has tickled me somewhat. Tik Young walked, so Fabrizio Romano could run. I mean, there was a time. I know we're being a wee bit nostalgic today, folks. Right? I promise we'll come to the transfers in a minute. But there was a time when Tik Young was probably the biggest reporter in Scottish football.
Yeah, look, a lot of these guys seem to get information directly from the club or directly from the owner of the club. I think it was quite common knowledge that back in the day, guys like David Murray would actually go out for dinner with journalists and stuff like that, and that's how a lot of the information kind of came out. And there was like direct lines for managers to journalists to make sure that certain things weren't, you know, there was a kind of maybe like a handshake type thing. You know, like they see that thing you heard last night about the player that was out at the club, but that doesn't go out in the paper today, but I'll give you the scoop in the next signing that comes in. And that's how things worked back then. Now it's like, I think before a transfers even get going, sometimes these journalists know what's happening because they're getting it directly from the agent. Because agents have become so big within the game now that these guys can leak pretty much every bit of information they want.
30 years ago, Willie, 30 years ago, we signed Gaza.
I mean, yeah, again, that was crazy. I just remember everybody being outside the main stand and Gaza came out with like the bleached blonde hair, I think it was. And it's just, it makes me feel old, to be honest, when you talk about things like that, because I always remember Gascoigne signing and things like that, even before then. So, yeah, it's a very different world then to what it is now, isn't it? So, maybe not always for the better.
No, but I was 6, just turned 6, I think, when Gaza signed for Rangers.
I was probably a bit older than that, to be fair, but
100% you're older than that, right? 100% you were. But
okay,
do you know what? I remember the news when Gaza was standing at the main door at Ibrox. When I was that age, I remember the news. But anyway, let's move on to some current topics. Willie, there's a bigger discussion to be had here, right? But firstly, Abu Kamara, Hull winger, Rangers linked with them. Again, I'm not sure if this is a player who we go for, Willie, if Hull aren't in kind of, I don't know if it's financial issue they're in or a transfer embargo, but there's something going on there.
Yeah, I think they're under transfer embargo because of unpaid fees, I think it was. Sorry to anybody in the comments, I'm just getting over a chest infection, so I'm still kind of struggling a wee bit here. Yeah, I had a bit of a look at Abu Kamara. Clearly a really good player. At the academy level, you would have to say like his stats are off the charts, really. When you look like he's PL2. But it looks like when he's moved up
what's
to
PL2, Willie, for us mere
was it the Premier League 2 is basically like the kind of under 21 level or under 23s, depending on the. So, I mean, looking at his stats, I think he basically averaged a goal just over every game, which is pretty impressive, you know, even at that level. And then he's obviously went out on loan. He's experienced that at Portsmouth, and then he's went to Hull, where he's done okay. But yet again, we're just basing that off our stats because that's all that we can see. Obviously, you could go on and maybe look at more kind of detail on YouTube, or if you've got access to some of these other sites like Y-Scout and stuff like that, you can obviously go on and look back at the video. But certainly when you look at his numbers, I think it was 52 games at Pompey, 10 goals, 11 assists. That's not bad for a guy that would have only been 19, 20 at the time. And then obviously at Hull, I think that's 5 goals and 3 assists in 37. But yeah, again, you don't know how often he's involved in the link-up play for these goals before the goal gets scored. But certainly for somebody his age, I think he certainly ticks a lot of the boxes, which is what we are looking for. You know, guys that have got resale value, guys that we can hopefully develop. And if we could get him for a lesser fee now because of the issues that they're having, it might allow us to make a little bit more profit further down the line. But there's been so many links to wingers in the last 4 or 5 days that it'll be interesting to see who they actually end up bringing in. But it does seem to be a priority position right now for Russell Martin and the board.
Hull paid over $5 million for this boy. According to Transfer Market anyway, which is where I'm getting my information from him for. Was it August 2024? He went from Norwich to Hull for 5.35 million reportedly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money to pay for a player, have him for a year and then sell him for a knockdown price, really.
But the problem is when you're under these like sort of type of embargoes and things like that, it usually means that you need to bring money in to allow that to free up whatever it is you're having to pay back. You know, Sheffield Wednesday are obviously in a very similar position in that they're probably going to have to sell some of their best players from last season just so they can pay the players' wages and stuff like that, which has obviously been the issue now for the last couple of months. I haven't looked obviously fully into the Hull side of things, but at the end of the day, if, you know, like, I mean, some people might say it's wrong that you're trying to kind of pick on a club when they're down in their luck kind of thing, but at the end of the day, if there's a good player there and Rangers feel like there's value and that they can maybe get him for a reasonable fee, a bit like the Asgard one to your point, obviously, you know, Luton aren't in like sort of financial difficulties, but because they dropped into League One and there's this clause in his contract, you know, Rangers are able to get him probably for less than what his actual real value is. And if they can get the deal done, you know, with the lad for Sheffield Wednesday, it's likely going to be a fee that's less than what he would have been valued at had they not been in the issues that they're in at the moment.
Barring Lyle Cameron, Molly, right, who was obviously signed before Russell Martin got here, and Oscar Cortez, right? The signings that's been made since Martin came through the door, has anybody been under 6 foot?
I don't think so.
No.
And that's something that they've obviously looked. Don't get me wrong, it's not the be all and end all that you're over 6 foot as a footballer. But I think when you look at Scottish football, it is a very physical, combative league. So you certainly do need a bit of that about you. I was quite surprised when I seen the size of Asgard. I think it was 6'1", 6'2", they said he was. But actually seeing him on like the training video yesterday, he actually looks a bit taller than that. Like, obviously he isn't, but because you're judging things through the television a lot of the times, he actually is a bit bigger than what I first thought he was going to be.
Max Aarons.
Yeah, but like I don't necessarily think a fullback needs to be 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". You're looking for more the athleticism in that part of the team, aren't you? Yeah, you could argue that maybe the opposition might pick on him because he's a little bit smaller, but I think his attributes certainly outweigh, you know, the negative side of his game, and that's a good thing for us. But there's no doubt we do seem to be looking to add a bit of physicality in different parts of the team, which has been badly needed, if we're totally honest about it. I mean, I certainly didn't think we were going to sign somebody the size of Fernandes and Giga, to be fair, because they two guys are monsters when you look at them physically as well as in their height. But look, it's been badly needed at Rangers. We've not been a dominant centre-back pairing for a number of years now. You could probably go back to the Goldson and Helander partnership. It was really the last time there was a degree of confidence in that centre-back pairing. I think since then there's been so many ins and outs and players that have come in and struggled, and And it's been a real problem. And last season showed a lot of the failings that we had defensively with the amount of goals that we lost.
But, I mean, you mentioned there Hollander and Goldson was a unit, right? Goldson was a big guy. Hollander was tall and stuff, but the two of them, Willie, I'm looking at Fernandes and Giga that's been brought in. I mean, the physicality alone of they two dwarfs anything we've had for I don't know how long.
Yeah, and look, I think...
That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work, by the way, and they're going to be
No, of course not. And that's the thing, like, sort of like, no matter who you sign, there is never a guarantee how things are going to work out. But certainly when you look at, like, if you look at Scottish football in general, right, it is very combative. It's very physical. And especially last season against us, all you needed to do was dump the ball into our box and we looked very, very wary. So you look at the pace that these two guys have got. So even if you get caught playing the high line, these guys have got the pace to get back in there. I don't doubt for a minute we're going to sign a left back. I think that's a given that we're going to sign a left back. You've also got Max Aarons there. Obviously, Tav can cover it full back or at centre half, which I think he's probably going to do this season more than not. The midfield, I still think you could add a midfield enforcer in there potentially, but that might come after we try and get rid of some of the players that are in there at the moment that they don't want to keep. And the same up front, I think we'll have to wait to sign a striker because unless we can, sell a Dessers or a Danilo or an Eagleman, I don't see us adding a fourth striker when we mainly only play one up top.
Just in terms of the centre-backs, Willie, that will be Proper, Suter, Fernandes, Giga. Obviously, Inciala is going to be leaving either on loan or transfer. I don't really know. Russell Martin didn't exactly make that very clear. But in terms of centre-backs, then, do you think that's us done? Or if we can somehow manage to get rid of Proper, are we bringing another one in?
I would imagine we'll bring in one more. I think we'll see one more. Maybe somebody a little bit more experienced. Because when you look at the age of Giga and Fernandes, they are fairly young. For all, when you look at, the lad that we've brought in from Wolves, he's actually fairly experienced for his age. And he's obviously played at a far higher level. But you're looking at probably getting rid of Davies. You're probably looking at getting rid of Proper. I would imagine Leon King will either be loaned out or he'll be sold this summer. So that basically would leave you John Suter along with the two new signings. So you probably do need that fourth option. And then, as I say, I think Tav will be maybe a hybrid between the two, the full back and the centre back. And it's tough on Inciala to a point, but I think he does need to go and play. We've still got to remember, last season was the first time that he'd played men's football. He basically came from the AC Milan's academy. Obviously played for the Rangers B team for a period before moving up to the first team. So while the Rangers are looking to loan him out, or while they're looking to sell him with a big sell-on fee, because I would imagine that's what they'll do, because it's not like he really owes us anything. But I think putting him out...
Charles' comment, Murray, is along the lines of what you're saying. I really don't understand why Inciala is leaving. Thank you for the support, Charles. Get out of you.
Yeah. No, I think Charles is making a comment that maybe others have picked up on as well. But I think it just comes down to the lack of games. And I guess the worry for this season would be that he's not going to play a lot. Mm-hmm. If we were to go out and say sign Connor Cody, you've got Fernandes, Giga and Suter. How often is he going to play?
Well, you also mentioned there, Willie, about experience. We've brought in Fernandes, who's got a little bit of experience in League One. We brought in Giga, who has a little bit of Champions League experience, but first-team football, not a great deal. If you add Inciala into that should get 3 players that are all relatively inexperienced for one of the most important positions on the park.
Yeah, look, Giga's not too bad in terms of his experience, but yeah, he is still young. You look at Fernandes, he's basically came from non-league to play for Wycombe. Sorry, play for Peterborough. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you do need a kind of older head in there that's got that little bit of nous and experience, and I think that's something that we're lacking. And yet again, Suter's in the last year of his contract, so I would imagine if Rangers are looking to keep John Suter, they'll be looking to tie him down to a new deal because they don't want him running down his contract. Because yet again, you then need to replace him with another Scottish centre half, because we do need to have a core of Scottish players within the squad. But I do think we will sign one more. But we are going to move players on. There's no doubt about it. Ben Davies, Robin Proper, Clinton Enciala, and probably Leon King. That's four centre halves that could leave in this window, and you add in potentially Ridvan at fullback. There's your fifth guy out of a back line. It's a lot of players moving out and a lot of players moving in. So, it might not be perfect at the start of the season just because of the amount of changes, but there's no doubt it was needed. I don't think anybody could argue that.
You just said there about a Scottish core. Now, Liam Kelly, I don't think will play as much this season. I think if Butland stays, it'll be Butland, right? You've obviously got John Souttar in there. In the middle of the park, Wally, you've got Bailey Rice in the middle, who's not going to play as much, I don't think, as a Raskin or a Diamandi or whatever, right? And then up front, no Scots. You've got maybe Lyle Cameron in there, who's going to be probably, I would imagine, a bit part player. I could be wrong, but so there's not a real strong Scottish core within this Rangers team. And I suppose the question leads to then, Wally, well, is there players out there who A, are good enough, right, to come in and be part of the first team and that are Scottish, and then B, the ones that are good enough, can we afford them?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. You'd probably have to get these guys in before they move to England. That's probably the only way that we're going to be able to do that. So you would almost have to look at, the players for the next 1, 2, 3 years and try and get them before they move on. But it is very difficult because I think now, as we've touched on in other podcasts, a lot of players aren't necessarily looking at signing for Rangers and Celtic. A lot of them are looking to move abroad, or they'll move to England. I don't think for a lot of players it's quite as big a deal now moving to Rangers and Celtic if you're at a Mullabo or a Kamara, etc. I just don't think that's seen as like the perfect move for a lot of players. And I think because of the hassle that Rangers and Celtic players get as well when they're out and about, I think they look at it and just think I can have a far better life going to play for a top tier championship team or a bottom 12 Prem team or go abroad and play, because they probably won't really get any hassle like they would do playing for Rangers or Celtic. And I think that is an issue, and it's possibly something that we can look at moving forward. But at the end of the day, we also do have our own academy where we might just have to start picking the best players out of the academy and trying to get them in the first team. We've obviously got a few guys down at St George's at the moment training with them, so that can only be a good thing for the players that are coming through.
Right, let's a question posed by Ian Thompson yesterday, Wally. Obviously, we brought in. I don't know, Fernandez. What national team does he thingy for? Do we know? Is it England?
I don't know if he's. I think the problem with guys, they probably do have an option to play for one of the African countries, I would imagine, as well as England.
Well, Giga does, doesn't he? Giga's Burkina Faso.
Yeah, he's Burkina Faso.
Diamandi, Ivory Coast. Dessers, Nigeria. Igaman, Morocco. Come January, Wally, is that going to be an issue with AFCON?
Yeah, it's an issue. But I don't think you can't sign a player just
Wally,
because...
See if you look at our January.
Yeah.
Hard this month. We've got, is it Celtic away, Aberdeen home or away, Hibs away? January is going to be really, really tough. And if a lot of our better players are away to AFCON, that could be a serious problem.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is things that's been spoken about before. You look at some of the top English teams, the amount of African players that play there now. It is an issue. It is an issue. And I think that's why there's been quite a lot of chat about trying to move the AFCON to the summer so that it links up with the kind of years of the Euros or with the World Cups and stuff like that, so that it makes it easier that you're not losing players during the season. But look, it is a problem. If we're to lose like Diamandi, Dessers, and Giga, and obviously Igaman if he's still here, it is a big loss to the squad. You're talking about 4 guys that are potentially starting most weeks. So it is a problem, and it's something that the board probably need to take into contingency when they're looking at players that they're bringing in. I'm not saying you shouldn't sign an African player because of that reason, but it clearly is a problem that you're losing these guys for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And during that spell, they could be massively, kind of missed in games that we really need them in.
And that's as well, if we're looking at players moving forward. Is that something, do you think, needs to come into the manager's mind, that you've got so many African players who could leave in the January, but there's this guy on a really good deal, but if I sign him, he might be away with his country?
I don't think you can have a look at it like that, to be honest. I think you'll always try to bring in the best possible player you can afford to bring into the football club. I mean, when you look at somebody like Giga that's come in, he should be a good player at this level. You know, he's played in the Champions League. He's played for Red Star Belgrade. He's played in France. He's obviously like a full international. He kind of ticks a lot of the boxes and he's a good age. The only problem is he's not coming in a permanent deal. Like, that's probably the only disappointment out of the bigger picture. If Dessers and Egerman go in this window, then it's probably only Giga and Diamandi that you're having to cover. Whereas if all four of those guys are still here and they all get called up, it is a problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we can hide that fact. And as you say, kind of late December and obviously getting into the start of January tends to be really, really busy periods for us and usually some of the biggest games of the season.
Well, especially now that obviously the winter break's been done away with. Because if the winter break hadn't been done away with, well, it would have been okay. Yeah,
and that's not ideal, is it? Let's be honest about it. It isn't great for the clubs. I think they would like to try and give the players a bit of a break. And then obviously there's a lot of travelling involved as well for these African players, which isn't ideal for the club. It's just one of those things when you sign players, you know, you're going to have to accept. It's a bit like when you look at, you know, the amount of players that are travelling back and forth to South America all the time now. It is, I mean, there's so much travelling involved in the games. The amount of games that these guys at the top level are playing at now, some of them must be hitting 65, 70 games a season, which is a hell of a lot of football for players. And that's why, like, this World Club Championship's taking a bit of criticism, because you're just adding more games onto what was already quite a busy schedule for them.
Yeah, it's really not ideal. But again, like you say, look, I don't think that can possibly come into your thinking when you're looking to buy players. With the Jamaica Giga, by the way, his first training session, and he's got the Terry Butcher headband on.
I love it.
Brilliant.
I mean, look, see, to me, right, when you look at like your centre half, you want them to have a wee scar in the forehead, don't you, or something like that, because you know that, you know, they've had to header somebody in the face, or they've maybe caught a stud or something like that. So you can expect it with these guys, but look, he'll certainly know Scottish football pretty quickly. The fact we're going to like Motherwell in the first game of the season, because they don't tend to hide how they play very often, Motherwell.
No.
And then when you go to places like Livingston, when you go to St Mirren away third game of the season, you know, we know how St Mirren play, and we don't tend to cope with it very well overall. So the big man will get used to Scottish football pretty quickly when that ball just keeps getting smashed into the box where he is, because if you don't deal with it, they'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, and by the way, I'll be at Fir Park before Rangers travel to Fir Park, will I?
Oh, you're going to watch your brother play?
Motherwell versus Peterhead on the 15th.
There you go.
If you're not busy,
well, I mean, that's a great... Yeah, look, it's a great experience for him, mate, you know, getting to play at the top flight like that. You know, it's going to be great for him, going to be playing against good players to be tested against. And I think that's the thing for any young player. And we touched on that a couple of pods ago. See the experience that young players will get in these type of games. It can only be a good thing for their development. That's why I think, like this year with the Challenge Cup for the academy, I think it's 6 guaranteed games against like league opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great for our young players. Yes, I mean, I would imagine in the main it's going to be under 19s, it's going to be a young squad. So you might have some 16, 17-year-olds out playing in those games, which for them is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And I must admit, I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be able to get a seat, because normally when you go away with Rangers, it's my biggest bugbear. I know people love it, but it's my biggest bugbear. You can't sit down at away games.
No, it's not been like that for quite a while now, to be fair.
Just in case anybody watching is interested, he's on the flyer for it. So Motherwell versus Peterhead, 15th of July, 2025, 7:45 Fir Park. Tickets are £15. There we go. Go and support Adam. He's on the cover. You know what I mean? You know what's frustrating? He's much more handsome than me, Wally, which is really frustrating.
Well, I would say that most of your, you know, sort of family members are probably better looking than you, to be fair. I mean, we'll not talk about one in particular, all right, because that's going to cause a riot. But yeah, I think it is fair to say that you were the runt in the litter, mate, unfortunately.
I was. Yeah, I was. That's because I've got...
I mean, I was the same, mate. I mean, like, I can't say I'm the best looking guy in the world either, so it's all right.
That's because I've got an English dad. I think that's what.
Right, okay.
The Trying Scotsman has gifted a Rangers Rabble membership. Thank you very much, Trying. And it has went to Donald64. So congratulations, Donald. And thank you very much, the Trying Scotsman. Now, tonight, folks, for our CEO members and for everybody on Patreon who will get it after it's been live, is the Rabble Wrestling show with Ian and Connor. So for all you wrestling geeks and fans, make sure you tune in to that tonight. But just before we go, as yes, let's call it a Rabble night out, Tim. Let's get a bunch of Rangers fans down to Fir Park to support Peterhead, shall we?
Is it Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, aye.
You want to pick me up there and I'll go with you?
I was planning on having an alcoholic beverage at it, William. But yes, I'll pick you up.
We'll speak nicely and see if Davy McCallum's running about and see if Davy will drive us home. What do you think?
I think he might. He loves him close to there. Anyway, that's a conversation for when we're finished, William. Yes. Did we sign Zebedee? Has the club announced the signing, Willie?
I don't think the club are going to do it by the looks of it, but I believe everything's done. The deal's been signed off. He's already been training with the under-19, so yeah, I do. I think everything's signed. They've also signed another young player from Queen's Park, James Reek. He's a young centre half. You obviously seen him at the weekend there. I think that's it at the moment for those age groups. I don't believe anybody else has been signed. Other than that, obviously, like a few players have signed new contracts. But the club don't really seem to be saying much on that. They obviously didn't really cover the friendly game either at the weekend. I don't know if they'll cover this weekend's game against Blackpool either. So I'm not really too sure what's going on there. But obviously we're in the midst of trying to speak to the club on a few of those matters. So as soon as we get confirmation about what's happening, we can let everybody else know what's happening.
Exactly. And by the way, 68 likes on YouTube. What's going on this morning? I mean, yesterday or the day before, it would have been the day before because I wasn't on yesterday. We got well over 200 and now we're sitting on 68. It's not acceptable, folks. It's really not. I shouldn't have to remind you all, right, to hit that like button. It's like dealing with children.
See, that's the thing. I watch obviously quite a few things on YouTube, and it is funny because every one that you watch, the guy's always saying, please subscribe and please like the video. But I don't think people realise how important like sort of clicking the like button is, because it actually helps other people see the podcast online. So the more people that like it and the more people that obviously, sort of subscribe to the channel, it actually makes things a lot easier moving forward for you and for the people that are watching. So yeah, if you are there, click the like button, subscribe if you've not already done it. It just helps to grow the podcast, because when me and Martin started all those years ago, when there was like nobody watching, to have like whatever that is, 14,100 people now is a little bit crazy, to be honest.
Yes, and no, you can't take your like back. It's against the law.
No, it's not allowed. It's not allowed.
Oh, Lyndon's slagging me, and he's lost his gifted membership. Oh, no more slaggings in the members shows for Lyndon.
Oh.
Unless, of course, Lyndon clicks the link in the description and joins as a member. Then yeah, you can continue to watch all the extra shows, Lyndon. But there we go, folks. That will do us for today. Like I say, we're back tonight with the Rabble Wrestling Members Show. If I could get Ash on every day, Charles, I would. But I can't because she works full time.
I'm going to watch the Form Athletic play. Obviously Derek that used to do the pods. His team are playing Queen's Park under-17s tonight at Lockhinge, so going to go along and show some support to my mate. Yeah, I think they've got some really good players in that group from what Derek was saying, so going to go along and see how they do against Queen's Park. I would imagine that'll be a pretty good test for them, to be fair. So going to pop along to that tonight since I'm off tomorrow.
Oh, you're off tomorrow?
I know, Friday off, can you believe it? I'm going to get my white legs out since the sun's gone about. That will scare the whole neighbourhood.
I have never seen whiter legs in my life. Right, folks,
I actually don't think anybody's whiter than me, to be honest. I actually don't think it's possible.
You are the whitest man in the world. You really are.
I see the thing is, like, see, when I'm on holiday, I don't tan. I could probably sit in direct sunlight all day, and I just do not take any colour. I swear there must be something wrong with me.
You actually do. You just don't realise because you've went from like very white and you actually end up white, which is
so like what you're trying to say is like I'm sort of like an undercoat of white normally, then I go like a normal coat of white when I've got a bit of tan.
You go like Magnolia when you've got a tan.
It is. I mean, it's so weird, mate. Honestly, like some of the places we've been in, the heat we've been in, it's incredible that I just do not take a tan. It's quite incredible.
I can't believe that we all at tan chat. We're still only on 97 likes.
All right, so we're not leaving until we hit 100 likes, right? So do it as quick as possible so we can get off because I've still not had my lunch.
Wally gets very grumpy when he's not had his lunch.
So I mean, as you have seen before.
Yes, I have.
So we hit 100 likes yet?
No.
Oh, Jesus.
We're on 98 likes. I honestly cannot believe that Wally's not had his lunch yet and he's still sitting there.
It's because I had to go and hang that washing out. I mean, see if there's any hang the washing out, I would have had something to eat, but because I was so scared of my wife coming in and shouting at me for not having the washing out, I was prepared to hold off on eating.
Like subtracted for more Rangers chat, and he's done it as well. We're doing tonight. Right, listen, we're going to leave it there because people are just no liking, so that we carry on. Listen, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to our little show here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast, Rabble Network. Thank you very, very much. Wally, as ever, thank you, mate.
Right, I'm definitely going to wait to have something because I'm really peckish.
And I'll see you on Saturday.
Yes.
Right, cool. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure that you join us tonight for the Rabble Wrestling, all you beautiful members. And we'll be back at 12:30 tomorrow.